Cantinflas died alone. The man who made the entire world laugh died with no one there to listen to him. Not his son, not his family, not his friends. And worst of all, until his final day, he believed a lie. A lie that destroyed his family and erased his legacy. In this video, you will hear the audio recording of his final words, where he mentions his son 11 times. You will see the 4-page letter he wrote in 1981, hidden by his nephew for 22 years, and you will see the video that proves his will was falsified while he was dying. 3 pieces of evidence, 1 conspiracy, and $70 million that vanished in just 6 months. Mario Moreno Ivanova is 32 years old. He has just won the most brutal legal battle in Mexican history. The judge officially declares him the legitimate son of Cantinflas. It should be the happiest moment of his life. But when he leaves the courthouse, his father is not waiting for him. Cantinflas is in his mansion in Bosque de las Lomas. The curtains are closed. He doesn't answer the phone. And that night, Cantinflas does something no one expects. He calls his nephew, Eduardo Moreno Laparade. At 1:34 in the morning, the call lasts 43 minutes. Eduardo never revealed what was said, but the next day he does something strange. He flies to Acapulco with a suitcase and doesn't return for 3 weeks. Remember that suitcase? We'll come back to it. Mario Ivanova decided to do something unthinkable for that time. He filed a paternity lawsuit against the most powerful man in Mexico. It was 1961. Mario was 12 years old. His mother, Guadalupe Ivanova, a Russian dancer who worked at the Folies Bergère in Mexico City, had spent years trying to get Cantinflas to recognize his son. The evidence was overwhelming. Love letters written in Cantinflas's own handwriting, monthly checks he sent religiously, and something else, hospital receipts showing Cantinflas paid for the entire birth under his real name, Mario Fortino Alfonso Moreno Reyes. The problem wasn't proving paternity. The problem was Valentina Ivanova Zubarev, Cantinflas's official wife. Valentina couldn't have children. A youthful accident had taken that possibility from her. And in 1940s Mexico, a childless couple was considered an incomplete family. So Cantinflas and Valentina did something that seemed perfect. They adopted. The child was named Mario Arturo Moreno Ivanova. He was born on February 15, 1951. The adoption papers were flawless. The judge approved everything in 48 hours, far too fast for 1951. Here is the first secret that destroyed everything. That adopted child was Cantinflas' biological son. Guadalupe Ivanova had given birth. Cantinflas paid for everything and then convinced Valentina to officially adopt the child. The perfect solution. His son would have his last name, his inheritance, his protection, and no one would ever know the truth. Except Guadalupe never signed the custody relinquishment papers. Legally, she was still the mother, and her son grew up calling another woman mom, living in a mansion while she survived by giving dance lessons, seeing him in newspaper photos, at movie premieres, at society parties. Her son, the son she gave birth to, raised by another woman. Mario is 4 years old. Guadalupe goes to Cantinflas's mansion. She knocks. Valentina opens the door. The conversation lasts less than 3 minutes. Valentina closes the door. Guadalupe never tries again. But that night, she writes something in her diary, a 7-page entry. That diary exists, and what it says on page 4 is the reason Cantinflas would die alone 38 years later. By 1956, Cantinflas is unstoppable. Around the World in 80 Days turns him into an international star. David Niven, Shirley MacLaine, Frank Sinatra. Everyone wants to work with him. Hollywood offers him million-dollar contracts. He rejects them all and returns to Mexico, to his son, to Valentina, to his empire. But there is something no one knows. Cantinflas is secretly meeting Guadalupe once a month. Always Thursdays. Always at 3:30 p.m. Always at the same cafe in Zona Rosa El Sorrento. They sit at the table in the back. He gives her an envelope of money. She tells him how Mario is doing. He never asks to see him. She never offers. This ritual lasts 11 years. 132 Thursdays. 132 envelopes. The last Thursday they meet is March 14, 1967. Mario is 16. Guadalupe tells Cantinflas something that makes him go pale. He stands up without touching his coffee, walks out quickly, gets into his car. His driver, Roberto Gomez, notices his hands shaking. Years later, Roberto would say, "That day, Don Mario aged 10 years and 10 minutes." What did Guadalupe tell him? There is a photograph from that day. A waiter and amateur photographer wanted a picture of Cantinflas and captured the exact moment. Guadalupe with her mouth half open mid-sentence. Cantinflas with his eyes wide in shock. That photo sat in a safe for 40 years. Mario Moreno Ivanova files the lawsuit. All of Mexico freezes. The adopted son of Cantinflas is actually his biological son. The newspapers go wild. Headlines scream, "The greatest secret of Mexican cinema." One paper goes further. Cantinflas' two sons or one. The legal battle lasts 20 years. 20 years. From 1961 to 1981. Mario grows up in courtrooms. His adolescence is subpoenas. His youth is lawyers. He turns 15 testifying, turns 21 in a hearing, turns 30 waiting for the final verdict. Cantinflas never testifies, never appears in court. He sends lawyers, 11 different lawyers over 20 years. The best legal team in Mexico defending one position. Mario Moreno Ivanova is already my adopted son. He doesn't need to be recognized as my biological son. He already has everything. But Mario doesn't want everything. He wants the truth. He wants his father to say publicly, "You are my son." 3 words. Cantinflas refuses for 20 years. Why? Here is the second secret. It wasn't Valentina. She had known everything all along. It wasn't the money. Mario was already named universal heir. It was something darker, something involving Eduardo Moreno Laparade, the nephew of Cantinflas. And that suitcase he took to Acapulco. Eduardo was the administrator of the Cantinflas empire. He managed the films, the rights, the investments, everything. Officially, he was the general manager. Unofficially, he was the real heir. Because if something happened to Cantinflas, and Mario was only an adopted son, Eduardo could fight for the inheritance. Adopted children in Mexico at that time had limited rights. But if Mario was legally recognized as biological, Eduardo would lose everything. There was a contract between Cantinflas and Eduardo, signed in 1956. It contained a specific clause, Clause 7, subsection B. In the event the contractor has legally recognized biological descendants, this contract is automatically null and void. That contract gave Eduardo 15% of all Cantinflas' earnings. Every movie, every re-release, every license, 15% forever. By 1980, that 15% amounted to $847,000 per year. If Mario were recognized as biological, Eduardo would lose nearly $1 million a year for the rest of his life. On July 22, 1981, the judge reads the verdict. Mario Moreno Ivanova is recognized as the biological son of Mario Fortino Alfonso Moreno Reyes, artistically known as Cantinflas. The press room explodes. Cameras go crazy. Mario, now 32, cries, but not from happiness. He cries because his father isn't there. Cantinflas is in Acapulco at his beach house. Eduardo is with him. They receive the news by phone at 11:23 a.m. The lawyer reads the full verdict. Cantinflas says nothing. He hangs up, stands, walks to the terrace, and stares at the ocean for 2 hours. Eduardo stays in the living room. When Cantinflas returns, he says something Eduardo would remember for the rest of his life. It's over. Everything is over. That night, Cantinflas writes a letter, 4 handwritten pages. He places it in an envelope and writes on the front, "For Mario. Open only if I cannot deliver it to you personally." He hands the envelope to Eduardo and says, "If anything happens to me, give this to my son." Eduardo nods and places the envelope in his briefcase. That letter never reached Mario. It disappeared. But a photocopy exists. The doctor does find an arrhythmia. It isn't critical, but he recommends observation, at least 3 days of monitoring. Cantinflas doesn't want to stay. He wants to sign his will first, but the doctor insists. Eduardo insists. Mario isn't there that day. He has a work meeting he can't cancel. Cantinflas finally agrees to go to the hospital. He tells Jesus, "As soon as I'm out, we sign the will. Make sure the lawyers are ready." "Yes, Don Mario," Jesus replies. Cantinflas is admitted to the Spanish hospital on April 16, 1993. It's supposed to be a routine checkup 3 days at most, but something goes wrong. On April 18th, his condition worsens. On April 19th, he goes into heart failure. At 6:01 p.m., the doctors say he has hours left. They call the family. Eduardo arrives first. He tells Maria Chavez, "Don't call Mario yet. Let me speak to Don Mario first." Maria hesitates, but Eduardo is authoritative. He insists. He goes into the room and stays alone with Cantinflas for 20 minutes. No one knows what they talked about, but when Eduardo comes out, he's holding a folder he didn't have when he went in. Maria calls Mario at 7:45 p.m. "Come quickly," she says. "It's your father. It's bad." Mario leaves immediately, but there's traffic. An accident on the Periférico. What should be a 20-minute drive takes an hour and 15 minutes. Cantinflas dies at 11:47 p.m. Mario arrives at 12:03 a.m., 16 minutes too late. Rosa Mendez, the nurse, is there. She witnesses his final moments. She records them. On tape number 47, the last tape, you can hear Cantinflas say, "Mario is here, Rosa. He's coming." "Yes, sir, he's coming." Cantinflas says, tell him that, and then it stops. There's no more audio. What was Cantinflas about to say? What did he need Mario to know? Rosa says it felt urgent, that he tried to speak but couldn't, that his final seconds were filled with anguish, as if he needed to reveal something crucial, as if he had one last secret. 3 days after the funeral, the lawyers read the will. Eduardo is there. Mario is there. Jesus Gomez is there. The lead attorney, Mr. Vargas, reads aloud, "I, Mario Fortino Alfonso Moreno Reyes, in full use of my mental faculties, declare my universal heir to be my nephew, Eduardo Moreno Laparade." Silence. Mario turns pale. Jesus stands up. "That's impossible. Don Mario changed his will a week ago. I was there." The lawyer replies, "This will is dated April 19th, 1993, the day of his death, signed at 6:30 p.m. It is the most recent." Mario says, "My father was dying at 6:30. He was in the hospital. How could he have signed anything?" The lawyer shows the document. The signature is there. Shaky, barely legible. But it's there. There are two witnesses, a doctor and Eduardo. Jesus asked to see the previous will, the one Cantinflas was supposed to sign before entering the hospital. The lawyer says, that will was revoked by the client. He ordered it destroyed. "When?" Jesus asks. "April 18th by phone." "That's impossible," Jesus says. "I was with Don Mario all day on the 18th. He never made that call." Eduardo speaks for the first time. "I made the call for him. He asked me to. He was very tired." "Why would he ask you?" Jesus asks. Eduardo replies, "Because he reconsidered his original decision. He decided I should be the heir after all." Mario doesn't argue. He doesn't yell. He doesn't accuse anyone. He leaves the office and goes straight to see a criminal defense attorney. He tells him everything. The lawyer says, "This smells like fraud, but you need proof. You need to prove your father couldn't have signed that will." Mario hires a forensic document examiner. The expert analyzes the will. His report is clear. The signature shows tremors consistent with someone in advanced heart failure. But something doesn't add up. The will is typewritten. Perfect. No errors. No corrections. Flawless legal language. Highly unlikely it was dictated by someone in critical condition. More importantly, the will lists properties Cantinflas purchased in 1992 using their exact legal names from the deeds. Cantinflas never referred to his properties by their legal names. He called them the house in Acapulco, the downtown apartment, things like that. The will sounds like it was written by a lawyer, not dictated by Cantinflas. In 1994, Mario files a lawsuit to nullify the will. He requests exhumation of the body for toxicology tests. He wants to know if Cantinflas was sedated when he supposedly signed. Eduardo objects. He says it would desecrate the memory of a national hero. The judge denies the exhumation, citing insufficient probable cause. The case stalls until 1997. That's when Rosa Mendez decides to speak. She tells Mario, "I have the recordings, all 47 tapes. In them, your father never says he wants Eduardo to inherit. On the contrary, he talks about you constantly, with love." She gives Mario the tapes. Mario listens to all of them. It takes 3 days. When he finishes, he's destroyed. His father never stopped loving him. His father always wanted a relationship. His father was deceived by Eduardo for 12 years. And in his final hours, just when they had finally reconciled, Eduardo made sure Mario arrived late. But the recordings can't be used in court. They were made without consent. They're illegal. Mario's lawyer says, we can't use them as evidence, but we can use them to know what to look for. And there it is. On tape number 34, Cantinflas mentions something. I gave Eduardo a letter in 1981. A letter for Mario. I hope he gives it to him when I'm gone. The letter. The 1981 letter. The letter that never reached Mario. Mario confronts Eduardo. He asks about the letter. Eduardo denies it exists. Says Cantinflas never gave him any letter. But the secretary who photocopied it in 1982 still has the copy. Her name is Lucia Fernandez. She worked for Eduardo for 15 years. She left in 1995. She kept the photocopy just in case. She reads about the trial in the newspaper, reads that Eduardo denies the letter ever existed. She decides to act. She calls Mario and says, I have a copy of that letter. Mario goes to see her that same day. Lucia gives him the photocopy. Mario reads it, and everything finally makes sense. The letter has 4 pages. On page 1, Cantinflas explains the adoption. He says he loved Guadalupe, that Mario was not an accident, that he was loved before he was born. On page 2, he explains why he didn't recognize him sooner: social pressure, fear of scandal, cowardice. On page 3, everything changes. Eduardo has advised me against recognition for years. He says it will ruin my career, that the public will reject me, that my films will fail. I now realize Eduardo had a personal interest. He has a contract with me that becomes void if I recognize you as my biological son. I cannot believe I allowed his financial interest to come between us. And on page 4, the farewell. Mario, if you are reading this, it means I died before I could tell you in person what you need to know. You are my son. You are my only son. I love you. I have always loved you. And my greatest regret is not telling you this every day of your life. Forgive me, and please, do not let Eduardo keep anything. He stole years from us. Do not let him steal your inheritance as well. With all my love, your father. Mario submits the photocopy to court in 1998. The judge admits it as evidence. Eduardo claims it's forged, says Lucia fabricated it to help Mario. The judge orders handwriting analysis. It takes 2 years. In 2000, the expert concludes, the handwritten text in the photocopy corresponds with high probability to the handwriting of Mario Moreno Reyes, known as Cantinflas. The characteristics match verified samples. Eduardo appeals. He says a photocopy isn't enough. They need the original. Mario asks him, where is the original? Eduardo replies, I lost it during a move in 1995. Convenient. The letter disappears 3 years before Lucia presents the copy. The case stalls again. Eduardo continues controlling Cantinflas' fortune. Mario keeps fighting. 7 years pass after Cantinflas' death. Then Eduardo dies. Pancreatic cancer. 68 years old. In his will, he leaves everything to his 3 children. But before he dies, he does something strange. He calls his eldest son, Eduardo Jr., gives him a box and says, don't open this until I'm dead. When you do, decide what to do with what's inside. Use your conscience. Eduardo dies on June 3, 2003. Eduardo Jr. opens the box on June 4th. Inside are documents, contracts, letters, and something else. A VHS tape with a handwritten label. April 19, 1993. 6:15 p.m. Eduardo Jr. puts the tape into the VCR. The image is blurry. A hospital room. Cantinflas in bed. Eduardo Sr. enters. Cantinflas looks very weak, eyes closed, labored breathing. Eduardo approaches, pulls out a folder and says, Don Mario, you need to sign this. It's the will we discussed. Cantinflas opens his eyes with effort, says something inaudible. Eduardo insists, please, Don Mario, it's important. Just sign. You see Eduardo take Cantinflas' hand and guide it. Cantinflas makes a mark on the paper barely recognizable as a signature. Eduardo says, thank you, Don Mario, now rest. He leaves the room. The video ends. Eduardo Jr. watches the video 3 times. Then he calls Mario. We need to talk. I have something you need to see. They meet 2 days later. Eduardo Jr. shows Mario the video. Mario watches in silence for 5 minutes. Then he asks, "Why did your father record this?" "I don't know," Eduardo Jr. says. "Insurance? Guilt? I don't know." Mario says, "Do you realize what this means?" Eduardo Jr. nods. "It means my father committed fraud. He manipulated a dying man to steal an inheritance." Eduardo Jr. gives Mario the tape. "Do what you think is right. My father did something unforgivable. I won't protect him." Mario submits the video to court in September 2003. The video is admissible. It's clear. It shows obvious manipulation. The judge declares the 1993 will null and void. He declares valid the 1990 will, in which Cantinflas left everything to Mario. In 2005, after 12 years of legal battles, Mario Moreno Ivanova finally receives his father's inheritance. But of the original $70 million, only $18 million remain. The rest vanished. Legal fees. Failed investments Eduardo made. Properties sold below market value. Mario's lawyers try to recover the money from Eduardo's family, but Eduardo Jr. proves he knew nothing. His father hid everything. There is no way to recover the money. Mario could keep fighting. He could sue. He could spend another 12 years in court. He doesn't. He decides it's enough. He is 56 years old. He lost his father. He lost years of his life in courtrooms. He lost most of the inheritance. What else could he lose? From 2005 to 2017, 12 years. The only years of peace Mario Moreno Ivanova ever had in his adult life. He moves into the mansion in Bosque de las Lomas, the house where he grew up, the house where his father spent his final years. The same walls, the same marble floors, the same floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the garden. But the house is empty. Far too big for one man. Mario never married. He had relationships, yes, but nothing that lasted. One of his partners, Carmen Salinas, a businesswoman he dated between 2008 and 2010 later, said in an interview that Mario was incapable of commitment. He was afraid. He said he didn't want to repeat the mistakes of his family. He didn't want another child growing up wondering who his father was. During those 12 years, Mario tried to rebuild Cantinflas' legacy. He created a foundation, restored films, organized tributes. But something inside him was broken. Maria Chavez, the housekeeper who continued working for Mario until his death, noticed it. Don Mario was alone. Physically, there were people around him. But inside, he was alone, as if part of him had died with his father in that hospital. On Thursdays, Mario did something strange. He went to Café El Sorrento in Zona Rosa, the same cafe where Cantinflas met Guadalupe every Thursday for 11 years. Mario sat at the same back table, ordered coffee, never drank it. He just sat there for an hour, staring out the window. Then he left. The owner of the cafe, who knew him, once asked, "Why do you come every Thursday, Don Mario?" Mario answered, "My father came here. He sat at this table with my biological mother. I think that if I sit here, I can understand what he thought, what he felt, why he did what he did." Mario never stopped searching for answers. He interviewed everyone who had known Cantinflas employees, actors, directors. He recorded more than 200 hours of testimony. He wanted to make a documentary. He was going to call it The True Story of Cantinflas, but he never finished it. The tapes are stored somewhere. No one knows where. In 2012, Mario tried to contact Eduardo's children. He wanted peace. Eduardo Jr. agreed to meet. They sat down at a neutral restaurant. The conversation lasted 3 hours. Eduardo Jr. told Mario things he didn't know, things his father confessed before dying. On his deathbed, Eduardo told his son, "I did unforgivable things. I separated a father from his son for money, for ambition. I thought I could justify it. I thought Don Mario would be better off without the pressure of that relationship. But the truth is, I was only thinking about myself. And now I'm going to die with that." Eduardo confessed something else. The suitcase he took to Acapulco in 1981, the night after the verdict that recognized Mario as Cantinflas' biological son. Inside that suitcase were documents, contracts between Eduardo and Cantinflas that violated tax laws, contracts that could have sent both of them to prison. Eduardo hid them in Acapulco. He literally buried them in the garden of Cantinflas' beach house. He never retrieved them. "My father gave me a map. Eduardo Jr. told Mario. A map showing where he buried those documents. He told me, if anyone ever asks, that's where the truth is. But I left them there. I didn't want to know what else my father did. Mario never went looking for those documents. He didn't want any more truce. He'd had enough for one lifetime. All he wanted was peace. But peace never fully came. Mario is 64 when his health begins to fail. High blood pressure, heart problems. Doctors tell him it's genetic. His father had the same issues. They tell him to reduce stress, exercise, eat better. Mario tries, but it's hard to heal when you live in a house full of ghosts. Every room holds a memory. The study where he reconciled with his father. The dining room where they ate Sunday lunches when he was a child. The terrace where Cantinflas sat reading scripts. Maria Chavez noticed something else. Mario talked to himself. Sometimes she heard him in the study, speaking as if someone else were there. She asked him once, "Who are you talking to, Don Mario?" He answered, "My dad. I tell him how things are going." Was Mario losing his mind, or was he simply carrying 64 years of accumulated pain? No one knows. But what we do know is this. Mario never got over his father's death. He never got over those 16 minutes. He never got over not knowing what Cantinflas wanted to tell him in his final seconds. Tape number 47, Rosa Mendez's last recording. Mario listened to it obsessively. Once a year became once a month, then once a week. By 2016, Maria Chavez said he listened to it almost every day. He would lock himself in the study, play the recording, and cry every single time. May 15th, 2017. Monday, Mario is 66. He has a normal day, breakfast, newspaper, emails, lunch alone in the dining room, television in the afternoon, a light dinner. At 10 p.m., he says to Maria, "Good night, see you tomorrow." "Good night, Don Mario." 11:47 p.m., the exact same time his father died 24 years earlier. Mario is in his bedroom when he feels a sharp, crushing pain in his chest, as if someone is squeezing his heart with a fist. He sits on the bed, tries to breathe, can't. He grabs his phone and calls emergency services. "I need an ambulance," he says, his voice breaking. "I think I'm having a heart attack." They ask for the address. He gives it. They tell him, "The ambulance is on the way. Stay on the line." But Mario can't. The pain is too much. He drops the phone. The ambulance arrives 23 minutes later. Too late. When the paramedics enter the room, Mario is on the floor, unconscious. They attempt resuscitation, CPR, defibrillator. Nothing works. 12:34 a.m., May 16, 2017. Mario Moreno Ivanova is pronounced dead. Cause acute myocardial infarction. He was 66 years old. He died alone in the same house where his father lived. Almost at the same hour his father died. The difference is this. His father had Rosa Mendez recording his final words. Mario had no one. Maria Chavez finds him the next morning. At 7 a.m., she enters the room to bring breakfast. The door is slightly open. She sees the body on the floor. She sees the paramedics waiting for the police. She screams. She cries. She runs to the kitchen, not knowing who to call. Mario had no wife, no children, no close family. She calls Eduardo Jr. Eduardo arrives 2 hours later. He sees the body, the scene, the empty house. He asks Maria, "Was he alone, Maria? Was he always alone?" Mario Moreno Ivanova's funeral is small, very small. About 50 people attend. A few employees, a few acquaintances, Eduardo Jr. and his family, some members of the Cantinflas Foundation. There are no crowds, no cameras, no national tributes. At Cantinflas's funeral in 1993, more than 25,000 people attended. Streets were closed. The president gave a speech. It was declared a national day of mourning. But Mario, his only son, his only descendant, was buried in silence. Mario's will is simple. He leaves the Bosque de las Lomas house to Maria Chavez, the housekeeper who cared for him for 35 years. He leaves the rest of his fortune to the Cantinflas Foundation to preserve his father's legacy. There are no direct heirs, no children, no wife. The Moreno bloodline ends with him. Inside the house, among Mario's belongings, they find something. A box. Inside are letters. 53 letters. All written by Mario. All addressed to Dad. All unsent. dated between 1993 and 2017. 24 years of letters never mailed. Maria Chavez reads the first one. It's dated April 20th, 1993, one day after Cantinflas died. Mario wrote, "Dad, I arrived late. Forgive me, I arrived 16 minutes late, and now I will have to live with that for the rest of my life." In the last letter, dated May 14th, 2017, one day before his death, Mario wrote, "Dad, tomorrow marks 24 years of trying to understand what you wanted to tell me in your last words. 24 years of listening to that recording, and I still don't know. But I think I will soon. I think I'll be with you soon, and you'll finally be able to finish that sentence." Did Mario know he was going to die? Was it a premonition? Or was he simply so tired of carrying that weight that unconsciously he gave up? Doctors say chronic stress can manifest physically, that emotional pain can become physical pain, that a broken heart can eventually stop working. Tape number 47. The recording of Cantinflas's last words disappeared. Maria searched through Mario's belongings. It wasn't there. Eduardo Jr. searched everything. Nothing. The estate lawyers made a full inventory. The recording doesn't exist. What happened to it? Some believe Mario destroyed it before he died, that he finally chose to let it go. Others believe it was stolen by someone who knew its value. But the most likely explanation is that Mario carried it with him on his phone on a personal device that was never found, which means Cantinflas's last words, tell him that, are lost forever. The final secret died with Mario. Cantinflas made 800 million people laugh. He died alone, waiting for a son who arrived 16 minutes too late. That son spent 24 years trying to understand what his father wanted to say in those final seconds and died without ever knowing. Alone, in the same house, at the same hour. As if fate closed a perfect, brutal circle, two generations of Moreno men, both brilliant, both loved by Mexico, both alone at the end, both carrying words they never said, both robbed of the time they deserved together. The Moreno surname ended on May 16th, 2017. There are no descendants, no blood heirs, only films, only memories, only unanswered questions. The house in Bosque de las Lomas is still there. Maria Chavez lives in it. She keeps it exactly as it was. Cantinflas's study is intact. Mario's bedroom is untouched, like a museum, like a mausoleum. A reminder that success, fame, and money mean nothing without family. And that letter, the 4-page letter Cantinflas wrote in 1981, the one Lucia photocopied, the original was never found. Eduardo took it to the grave, but the photocopy exists. And on page 4, after asking for forgiveness and warning about Eduardo, Cantinflas wrote one final line. A line Mario read 1,000 times. A line that was likely the last thing he thought about before he died. "Son, if you are reading this, it means I didn't have the courage to tell you this while I was alive. But you need to know, there has not been a single day I didn't think of you. Not a single moment I didn't want to be with you. And my greatest regret is not hiding you. It is wasting the time we could have had together out of fear, pride, and cowardice. Don't make my mistake. If you love someone, tell them now. Don't wait. Time runs out faster than you think, and unsaid words weigh more than any fortune ever lost." Cantinflas didn't follow his own advice. Mario didn't either. They both carried unsaid words to the grave. They both died alone with secrets in their hearts. And now you know why. But there's one more thing you need to know. Something that closes this tragedy in a way even Hollywood wouldn't dare to write. Remember those 53 letters Mario wrote to his father over 24 years? The letters he never sent. After Mario's death, Maria Chavez kept them in the same box, in the same closet in the study where father and son reconciled. In 2019, 2 years after Mario's death, Maria decided to donate the letters to Mexico's National Archive. She wanted them to become part of the official history. She wanted the truth to be known. When she went to retrieve the box, she found something else. Behind it was another box, old, dusty, sealed with yellowed tape. It had been there for decades. Maria opened it. Inside were letters, many letters, all written in Cantinflas's handwriting, all addressed to my son Mario, all unsent, dated between 1961 and 1990. 29 years of letters Cantinflas wrote but never mailed. Do you understand? While Mario was writing letters to his father he never sent, Cantinflas was writing letters to his son he never sent. Father and son, separated by walls of pride and fear, doing the exact same thing, writing the words they needed to say, but never finding the courage to deliver. Maria read some of them. In a letter dated August 3rd, 1975, Cantinflas wrote, "Son, today you turned 24. I don't know where you are. I don't know how you are. But I know you're somewhere celebrating without me, and it's my fault. All of it is my fault. I want to call you. I want to go find you. But Eduardo tells me you hate me, that you want nothing to do with me. Is it true that you hate me? Because I couldn't hate you even if I tried." In another letter dated December 12th, 1982, 1 year after the verdict recognizing Mario as his biological son, Cantinflas wrote, "Mario, I know you won. I know the judge ruled in your favor and you were right. You always were. But I don't know how to approach you now. I don't know how to say, forgive me. I lost 21 years of your life out of cowardice. How do you say that? How do you recover that time? Eduardo tells me it's too late, that there's nothing left to do. But I don't want to believe that." And in the final letter, dated March 14th, 1990, 2 days before Jesus Gomez showed Cantinflas the intercepted letters, he wrote, "Son, today I dreamed about you. I dreamed you walked into this house and asked me for forgiveness. And I told you, no, son, the one who needs forgiveness is me." We hugged and all the pain disappeared. It was only a dream, but it was the best dream I've had in 29 years. If God gives me another chance, I will tell you in person, I promise. 3 days later, Cantinflas saw Mario for the first time in 12 years, and he kept his promise. But by then, they had already lost 3 decades. Maria donated both boxes to the National Archive. The 53 letters from Mario, the 89 letters from Cantinflas, they are there for anyone to read. They are a permanent reminder of what happens when pride is stronger than love, when fear is stronger than truth. Do you know what the most heartbreaking part is? In many letters, father and son wrote about the same days, the same birthday, the same Christmas, the same anniversary of Valentina's death, both writing about the absence of the other, both feeling the same pain at the same time, but neither ever sending the letters. If just one of those letters had been sent, just one at any point in those 29 years, everything would have been different. The reconciliation would have come decades earlier. They would have had time, years together. The one thing they both desperately wanted but were too afraid to ask for. But the letters stayed in boxes, in closets, in the dark, just like the feelings inside them. Today, if you go to Mexico's National Archive, you can request to see those letters. You can read them. You can cry with them like Maria did, like Eduardo Jr. did, like everyone who discovers this story. Because in the end, this isn't just the story of Cantinflas and Mario. It's the story of all of us, of all the things we want to say, of all the calls we want to make but don't, of all the time we think we have when it's already slipping away. This is the true story Mexico prefers to forget, the story that never appears in tributes, the story behind the clown, the tragedy behind the laughter, the price one family paid for one man's success, and the lesson we all should learn but rarely do in time. If you like this video, like it, subscribe, and share. But before you go, let me ask you something. I'm preparing a video about another Mexican idol who also died without reconciling with his children. Another father who left behind a fortune and a void. Another family destroyed by success. Do you want to know who it is? Tell me in the comments. And you, what would you say to someone you love if you knew you only had 16 minutes left? Think about it. Because time runs out faster than you think, and the words you don't say today can become the regret you carry tomorrow. Don't wait. Don't make Cantinflas's mistake. Don't make Mario's mistake. Say what you need to say now, because unsent letters end up in dusty boxes, and unspoken I love yous end up in silent graves.